Welcome /malicious compliance. I'm the healer, you're a DPS, stop doing my job, okay? Now this will begin with a bit of terminology. I play Final Fantasy XIV, FFXIV, which is a multiplayer video game. In FFXIV, there are 3 types of classes: tank, who leads the way and makes sure enemies don't attack anyone else; healer, who heals damage and resurrects dead players; and DPS, who deals the majority of the damage. Dungeons are ran with a tank, a healer and 2 DPS, usually randomly assembled from people who queue up for the dungeon. The class I play is Red Mage, who, importantly to this story, is unique among DPS classes in the sense it can do a pretty decent healing output and very easily resurrect others, something even healers can't do. Without going to details, healers can only resurrect instantly once a minute, Red Mages can do it every 5 seconds. Dungeons have 3 bosses, each harder than the last. So this happened yesterday, when I got into a dungeon, Kitana Ravel for the knowledgeable, with a scholar as a healer. Note, Kitana is a pretty high level dungeon, definitely not for beginners. Red flags went off immediately, because for some reason Kitana tends to attract questionable scholars in my experience. Note that the scholar wasn't new to this dungeon. We go through the first boss with relative ease, but in the second boss the scholar is struggling to heal the incoming damage, and then dies when a pillar falls on them. I casually resurrect them, and heal the tank while they are resurrecting. They got mad, but didn't tell. Then later on the tank gets bold, and collects more enemies than they can chew, and the healer is doing kind of super healing, so I again pitch in with my healing spell. The third and final boss comes, and those who already ran it know that the final boss of Kitana is especially tough because of the sheer amount of unavoidable, and much more avoidable, damage. We start and I can already see the scholar isn't using their abilities effectively to mitigate and heal damage with the exact spell needed for the situation. They also aren't running away when an enemy ability requires them to run away. I tell them that's what the ability requires, and they don't answer, nor run away, when the boss uses the ability on them again. This goes on for a bit, then the tank dies. I casually resurrect them, and then heal them up. Healer dies shortly after, I resurrect them too. We eventually wipe when I die, and the healer starts casting a long resurrection spell. They use their once a minute resurrect instantly ability on the tank, on me, gets interrupted by damage, and dies to an avoidable boss ability. Then tank and other DPS die. We have to go back to the boss, and start it from the beginning since everyone died. This is called a wipe, and while legging it there, scholar goes off on me. Paraphrased, I wasted swift cast on the tank. Stop doing my job. I'm the healer, you're a DPS. Stop doing my job. I literally saved us a good couple times, but sure buddy. I reply with an okay. Boss time. Right off the bat, we get severely damaged by unavoidable damage and healer isn't using their correct abilities. I just mind my business and DPS. Then healer dies, ironically, because they still weren't running away from that one boss ability. Tank eyes me expectantly. I cast another Verthander, a DPS spell. Tank is trying their best to keep themselves alive, but tanks are not healers, nor red mages, and eventually they go down. The boss targets the other DPS next and hits them heavy. If only I had a healing spell. They go down, and since I'm refusing to heal even myself, I die. That's a wipe, folks. As we are all going back to the boss, tank asks me why I didn't resurrect the healer, or them. I reply scholar asked me to do my job and DPS. Tank responds with opening a vote to kick the scholar from the group. The vote passes with flying colors. A couple minutes later, we get another healer, a white mage this time, and we finish the final boss without any further issues. Lol, I had to opposite as a WHM. I was DPSing in a dungeon because there is just no DMG to heal, and every time the tank fell down below 90% the RDM would panic heal them, and then after the first boss finally said something real snotty about me, the healer, not doing my job by keeping the tank at a constant 100% health because I'm too busy playing a joke DPS. Now anyone knows you don't need to keep the tank at 100% outside of special instances, and passives can usually do the trick if PPL are dodging and using their cooldowns properly, especially when the healer and tank are both geared to the teeth. So what did I do? Throw on a couple hots, heal over time, up with a barrier and sit. Because the tank never fell below 95% I think they were trying to prove a point too, so were paying extra care to their cooldowns. RDM, who BTW never once did a physical rotation, goes apeshit on me about not doing anything at all. And I said, there was nothing for me to do, since the tank literally needed no heals with my hots on him, but if he could please start using his physical rotation to make up for my joke DPS, it would greatly be appreciated. The RDM eventually rage quit after going off on me for a few minimums and getting laughed at by the other 2 PPL in the part. Got a new guy almost immediately, and we went along our merry way. I did my normal DPS and heals rotations and had zero problems. I still regret not telling him he doesn't pay my sub. Reminds me of my time in EverQuest. Started in the Cunark/Velius time frame. Anytime more than one person of the same class got together, it was a big leaping contest. Except for rogues. Rogues were always like, hey wow, another rogue. Awesome choice. What gear you got? You using poisons? We all seemed to be big buddies with each other, even if we'd just met. Meanwhile 2 wizards in a party would be hating all over each other. This is my group. You can write out of it. The only thing worse was multiple clerics in a raid. For more to see on the opposite perspective, I play FFXIV but not WoW. Damage spikes infrequently enough in that game. Auto attacks can crit, but it doesn't tend to be catastrophic. That, if you know the content, you can see tanks floating anywhere from 20-40% then fluctuating to 80%. At any given moment. If the tank is ever at 95% or god forbid 100%, discounting some downtime where that's bound to happen, it feels a bit like a failure. If you're in one of the really early game easy instances, and the tank is a bit soft, it's often a game of do I even need to heal them at all for the remainder of this pull? Quite often the answer is no, despite that voice nagging in your head, and you can mash those DPS keys while they fall from 50% to 40% to 30% to 20% to 10%. Anthem mobs are a dead Zoitzfeen. The harder content is like this too, except the extra challenge comes from using your resources well, so you can maximize the time spent slinging damage spells, and that time is like 80% with okay play instead of the 100% you get in easy content. So far I've played one counter example. In this instance I had to focus almost entirely on healing. It feels so foreign in this game. Has to do with the fact that we are taken to the original release's level cap, which in the current game leaves you with half a class. Knowing my luck though, this is all true in WoW too, and I sound like an over-explaining maniac. Former top 15-ish guild WoW raider here, Kata/Mop days. I was the guild's main tank. I played Paladin and only Paladin. To the point where I got asked if my account was hacked when I played a rogue in PvP once. The main guild healer and I played together so often that we knew each other's reactions to things and how each other played intuitively. We also used to duo carry higher level dungeons and other content with pugs, because as long as some DPS was happening we could stay alive basically forever. So I spent plenty of time at 40, 30, 20, 10% HP while he healed newbie DPS's ordered mechanics. One of my favorite things to do was watching the pugs freak out when I'd go that low and lay on hands myself, then tease the healer in chat and have him give it right back to me. Miss that guy. Yesterday I was in Alexander 7, I think the one where you fight 4 robots, but no Sente fight at the end. My co-healer was either spamming Cure 1 on the mount, or applying individual regens to everyone in the party. Naturally, I'm not gonna heal if my co-healer is overhealing. A DPS calls me out for being a stone mage, and forcing his friend to solo heal. And I'm like, excuse me, but if your friend wants to waste his MP by being a cure bot, that isn't my issue. I also asked what type of WHM applied individual regens to full HP DPS when Medica 2 is way more efficient to use in their crusade to overheal the fully healed party. Yes, their MP was critical, but the amount of damage output by the boss was so lol worthy that there was no reason to heal. Of course DPS was snide and said something along the lines of, "Oh, so you're not going to heal then?" No, I'm not. The thing about this drama is that it is not the toxicity you expect. These are casual players who do not bother to learn their class at all but expect others to deal with their mistakes. This mindset is bred throughout the entire community, which calls itself nice and welcoming, even though they are holding themselves back. This birthed the ironic term great community, by the way, or GCBTW for short, among the people that have a functioning brain and play proficiently enough not to be a detriment to the team like that healer was. For anyone interested, please visit r/Talasfront for more stories like these. It actually gets much worse. When I was an emotionally unintelligent teen with a father who was all about winning and was on a couple varsity sports teams, I legitimately raged when I lost. I would get so mad and literally rage uninstall some games, only to then rage reinstall them an hour later and rage while I was waiting for the download. I had some events at work and in life in general that caused me to really reevaluate what was important in life, and I realized that I was clearly addicted to gaming and I was taking it way too seriously. Ended up majoring in community recreation management, still game daily without the rage, and hope to one day create a program to teach kids and teens healthy habits in gaming in general, but focusing on competitive gaming. While other sports have coaches at every level of competition, gaming only has coaches at the pro level, and even then they're all young gamers themselves. There is nobody to guide kids and teens and teach them what healthy gaming looks like or feels like, and that needs to change. I mean, there's some levels of knowing how your character works if you are a specific role though. I once had to try and heal a group with a properly leveled paladin tank in WoW, but who had massively under-leveled gear. It was a level 50 instance, and he had blue and purple gear that was for characters in the teens and early 20s. Literally any random green gear that dropped in the instance was better than what he had on, and had the most bizarre talent point distribution I'd ever seen. He also didn't have a shield, even though he was spec'd out to be a protection paladin. He literally was incapable of holding any aggro, which isn't a problem. I was leveling an alt and my main was a paladin tank and they hold aggro easy peasy because he was filling up every low level skill instead of moving up the skill tree to get the things he needed to tank. He couldn't even pull mobs safely because he didn't have that skill. If he wanted to play for fun he could have just kept grinding solo with his shitty gear and skills that didn't help. But once we got into an instance we couldn't even get past the opening few pulls because he'd drop dead in 3 seconds, even if I was unloading every healing ability I had on him. Any stigma against raising is stupid, and I haven't seen that from any competent players. Stigma against curing is usually rooted in the fact that people who do it are also often the ones who will start spamming heals the moment someone drops under 90% HP, like paladins who spam clemency on themselves because the healer isn't doing their job. RDM is not a good healer. It's a tolerable one for emergencies, but unless shit has hit the fan, they should be focusing on killing things instead of healing something the healer should be able to handle. Note that it's obviously a different case if the healer has proven they can't, or asks for help, like when I had a WHM whose weapon broke mid-dungeon. When you use their heals properly, and not as your primary source of party utility, they're a great tool. When you spam cures out, because the healer isn't keeping everyone topped up at all times, then that's you're contributing to the stigma of RDM heals being bad XP. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.